For this next video, what we're going to do is we're going to add to our form. So we've got our form, we've got all the buttons, we've got all the objects, everything looks great. The first thing I want to do is for the in the general declarations, I want to create some global variables. So to get to general declarations, I click on any button to get me the code view, and then I can click between public class form and the first sub, in this case private sub button 1 clicking, where I'm going to add a 1 for pressing button 1, is called the general declarations. Another way is you just click in here and you can type in general declarations. So the first variable is going to be called first number, and it's going to be a double. The second variable I need is called second number, and it's going to be the second number that I enter in my calculator. The next thing I am going to need is going to be an operator, and it's going to be operation. So my operation is going to be an integer, and it's basically going to be a 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4. You're probably wondering why I would make an operation of 1, 2, 3, and 4. Well, here's why. What I'm going to do is if I press multiply, I'm going to say that that is operation 1. And in Visual Basic, we know if-then statements, and in an if-then statement, we like to use numbers. So what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to create some constant variables. So for example, multiply is going to be an integer, and it's going to equal 1. So if I put multiply, that means 1. I'm going to make another constant, and that will be divide. It'll be an integer, and it's going to have a value of 2. And you'll probably see what I'm doing here. I'm going to have add, and it's going to be a value of 3. And finally, constant subtract. And you'll notice when I make constants, I often like to call them all capitals. It just makes them stand out a bit and know that they can't be changed. Constants are always going to exist and can't be changed. And it's going to equal a value of 4. So I've got a first number, a second number, an operation, and we're ready to go. So what I'm going to do here is let's take a look at multiply, and I'll show you what I would do for multiply. For multiply, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here to multiply, and I'm going to say in multiply that when I click on the multiply, one of the first things I want to do is I'm going to say the operation, that's my variable, equals multiply. So I've told the computer variable operation that we're multiplying. The next thing I can do is I need to get the value of the first number. So the variable I created called first number is equal to the value of the text box. So my text box, the text in it is going to turn into a value. So whatever numbers I had punched on the screen are going to be entered into the text box, and then that's going to be stored in my variable first number. Finally, I need to clear the text box. So my text box, the text in it, to clear it, I put 2 quotation marks, and that means nothing's in it. Finally, the last thing should be a little bit of bookkeeping here to make it so when I run the program, once I press multiply, I don't want to do it again or divide or so forth. So these functions need to be disabled. So what I'm going to do to disable it is simply write the code to disable, which would be button multiply dot enabled. So I put the dot, and it gives me the property, in this case enabled, and I set it to a value of being false. So the button cannot be pressed again. That's what enabled false means. So button multiply, the enabled property of the button, is now false. And I can do the same thing for divide. The divide button is enabled, is going to be false. And I need to do the same thing for add. No, I've already done that. and finally subtract. Great, so now I've got most things ready. And so when I press play, you're going to see that as I enter numbers, the numbers will appear. When I press multiply, it'll be disabled, and I'll be able to multiply.